Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday, and it is June 6th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And real quick before we get started, my fishing trip for next week, we're going to leave on Sunday instead of Monday, so I'll only be gone Monday and Tuesday. So I'll be gone Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so I should be back in the office Wednesday now for a full day. So anyway, nothing on Monday or Tuesday since I'll be out. But I will be back for regular business on Wednesday, assuming no travel issues or anything like that. But just wanted to update you on that. Uh, Here we are with our intraday chart. The envelope bands on here. This thing just keeps inching higher. This market's going higher. So it wants to go higher. It's going higher. Don't argue with it. Whatever it does, do. We do a lot of this sideways stuff, and then you get a day or two, and then boom. So it's really just kind of inching sideways again towards the high. But it's going higher. We're making new highs. I'm not sure if we're really making overall, definitely not overall new highs for this contract, but new highs since last fall for certain. Since at least back in October, September, October last year. So we're going higher, and this thing's pointing up again. So don't argue with it. If it goes up, we're going with it. If it goes down, we're going with it. If it goes sideways, we're going to make the best of it we can. So that's just how it works. I don't see any reason this market should be going higher, but it is. So let's go with it. That's all we can do. And you can see we had a mostly up day. When you see the intraday chart, it's mostly sideways, but we close on the high. So we closed higher than we did yesterday. So it's an up day. But mostly it's a lot of up and down, up and down, up and down. Um, market's really fighting to go higher, but it keeps going higher. So again, the only thing we can do is go with it. So anyway, there it is on the intraday chart or the daily chart. Let's go over to the 2000 tick intraday chart, and we'll take a look at it. We'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. Okay, and here it is. The highs were up here around 42.94 area. Lows down here around 42.69 something. Um, Early on, I had this much lower here. Most of our resistance was across here, but as this thing expanded, you just have to expand it with it until you figure out where it's at. And once we made this high, that remained the high of the day, and tends to fit pretty well across there, the midline. So So this is how I see it in the end. Of course, again, you probably had to adjust it as the day went. Once you made this high, you probably wanted to adjust it up and see what it looked like. And turns out it's just a bigger range. And we did close on the highs. So you can see we didn't really test these lows anymore. We couldn't even get back down there. That tells you that the market could be going higher. So, but again, it's a lot of up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, and it's exhausting, and it can whipsaw you and trap you and everything else. So you got to be careful in these things. But there's trends here you can trade. So let's zoom in here. You had to be really patient. I didn't see anything early on. There's nothing in this range sideways stuff, and I did mark this second entry short because I know somebody will ask me about it. We couldn't get back to the EMA, couldn't go back to the trend line. We already had a break, and we already had a new low, and that's just congestion, but it is a first entry, second entry, and it might have worked. I didn't even check it to see if it worked. You don't want to take that trade, but I guarantee you, because I didn't mark it, yeah, there's enough room to get out there. Somebody will ask me, why didn't you mark that one? Well, because it doesn't fit our entry criteria. First of all, it's too much sideways congestion. You've already had a break and a new low, and it doesn't even get back to the EMA or the trend line. So it's just not a good place to enter. It works with a slight amount of room to spare, but it's not a great setup. There was another second entry here. If the signal bar would have been better, I'd say take that trade, but not a very good signal bar on my chart. So if you had a positive signal bar there, you probably take that trade. We did look like we had a trend line. It looks like a little spike up. It goes into a channel. I don't think if you played it off the low, it's probably not much different. That's how I played it. If you played it off the lows, well, it would have been different. You would have had a break already. So of course you might have adjusted it here, but then it doesn't fit right. So I still like it the way I had it here. It looks like a little spike up in channel. And we ended up having a little overshoot up here in my opinion. So that's how I played it. But anyway, we're just bouncing up this. Again, you had that second entry, not a good enough signal bar. Then you just start chopping along, and of course you got, it looks like it looks like a triple test here with a little failed breakout. This bar is only like 5 or 6 ticks, 4 ticks. Very low risk. It's if this would have been a blue, I mean, if this signal bar would have been more positive, I would have made this blue. But it's being only 4 ticks, and I mean, a little failed breakout right off a key entry point. Take that trade. I mean, it's so low risk. I like it for that reason. I marked it green because of the signal bar, but I like that trade. The rest of this is just too choppy, too much resistance right across here. You can see it again, the trend line holds. You get a higher low, but if you look, there's just not room to scalp out there, and that concerns me. Maybe there's enough room to take that as a higher low. I didn't mark it. I didn't like it in real time, but you might could argue for that to be green. It takes off and makes a really nice move up, and then you get 2 legs back. It's just a first entry by the counts, but there's clearly a hidden second entry in there. I didn't mark this because it's kind of in no man's land. But when you make that higher low, I like going long if it breaks higher. And then again, there's another second entry right here when you'd expect prices to go higher. But I think that's just too congested. Definitely not enough room to scalp out. You just have to skip that one. But if you wait a few minutes, you finally get a triple test here, and there's a second entry. There's clearly 2 legs back there. A nice signal bar on top of that. I like that one. I really thought that would take off, and it scared me for a minute, but this one ends up taking on off and turns out to be a really nice trade. If you didn't enter here, I don't think I would enter here, though, all the same. It's really getting too congested there, and you could easily get trapped. And so if you didn't enter here, don't enter this one. If you entered here and you hung on, you got rewarded for it. I like the trade in real time if you put it to the right side of the chart. I mean, you're still looking for prices to possibly go higher, although they could go lower. This is one of these where prices could go either way, and you got all this support here, triple test. You just made a higher high, and you got a second entry. I'll probably take that most times. And again, it took it a minute, but what it'll do, it'll run a few people out with that little break lower. But just put your stop where it goes and don't monkey with your trade. That's what I always say. If you trust your reads. I do think we got an overshoot here, and then of course we work lower, and so you may not get a reversal here. So just take kind of what you get. I don't really see anything. I don't like going short right in here, even though you're expecting to come back here. This one broke higher and turned down, but by the time it gets down here, there's not much room left. You want to be real careful about going long here, because you had this overshoot. You're going to at least get a break most likely, and so it's tempting to trade that failure right there, and there is a double top there, so that's a failed second entry long. I just think it's a little congested. It is right into that trend line. It could bounce, even though you're expecting to get a break of the trend line due to this overshoot. Yeah, it turns out to be a really good move. I just don't think you want to risk that, because most times you'll get burned on that. It's really tempting to go long down here, in matter of fact, because you're so far away from the EMA and so overdone to the downside. But you would think this was probably your target, the open from earlier, and so that scares me, buying with no break of that trend line, because it could easily tick higher and come on back down here and then bounce. So I don't think you can go long right there either. But if you watch, you quickly get a great move up, a first entry short, a second move up, a second entry short, it fails. I like going long. Once again, it looks like it's going to shake you out. It looks very similar to this, and then it takes off again. And notice here you basically, this is a double bottom kind of congestion, and you get a first entry, second entry that fails, and there's actually a hidden second entry in there too. Move down, move back up, and then another move down, then it takes off. So that's a hidden second entry. Again, that's advanced. If you hadn't heard me talk about them, if you don't understand what that is, don't worry. It's probably too advanced for you. Basically, if you went to a slightly smaller chart, you'd see a true first entry, second entry there in an uptrend, and so maybe you take that. But with it being a failed second entry short and a second entry long, even though it's hidden, if you recognize all that, maybe you take that trade. So when that thing takes off, it turns out to be a pretty good move. Then it runs up here and tests the high from previous. There's a lower high here, but it's just really close to that EMA. There's some support across there too. Makes me a little nervous. It's one maybe you mark it green. I'd wait and see if you get a reversal, which you do right here, and I like going short there. And even that one takes it a minute, but it works on out and turns out to be a pretty good trade. And you're really just going sideways, and I don't see any. All these shorts are too close to. This is a possibility because there's a little bit of room here, and you could argue there's a triple test there. You don't really have a trend line there yet. That just kind of sets it, so you can't really use the trend line. So maybe you take that one. There's a lower high here, but just too congested. But if you wait a few minutes, this drops on down and gives you a true first entry, second entry, right off the key entry point. Still no close outside. I thought that might be a great trade that runs all the way to the other side. And guess what? You get a scalp out of it and nothing more. So it's just one of those days where you don't get a lot of runners and things. So it does end up going lower, but no runner on that. And then it's just, you can't go long there. Runs up, close outside, and then moves down. This is tempting again, but there's a break, and this thing's wanting to go higher. Notice we're staying all in the upper side here, and every time it gets down here, you get a big move. So you got to be real careful going short right in here like that. That big bar is very tempting, and a lot of times it'll trap you in. So I didn't like it. Again, I'm thinking reversal, and you do get a reversal here, but by that time it's just not. You got to go short right into some more support here. I didn't like it. It would have worked. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I should have marked it green, but I didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. I still don't like it. Even looking at it now, it's too congested. 1, 2, 3. There's 4 bars there. I'm not even going to mark it green. I didn't like it. I'm not going to mark it. If you took it and it worked, it is a failure. But you got to consider that congestion right there. And it's hard to know. I mean, we're right in the middle of the main part of the range. So that leads it. It could go either way. So you really need a better setup than that. I'll just leave it at that. Here I thought maybe we'd get a triple test, and we don't. And it's pretty obvious you're probably going to go lower here because notice how you're making a lower high each time. That's telling that it's probably going to drop out. It may fail and reverse real quickly and trap people, but it's probably still going to fail out. Here it drops down. It just kind of chops around. Again, there's no entries in here. Don't even try it. And notice you do get a first entry, second entry. You actually get a third entry, but it never breaks higher, so the failure doesn't come till here. It's just kind of going sideways. And it bounces right off the trend line, kind of confirms that with a third touch. It gives you a hidden second entry. It gives you a nice signal bar off the EMA, the trend line. I like going long there. And finally, you get a little bit of movement here, and you probably could have caught a runner on that one. The problem is you may not could have caught this trade because it gaps and moves so quick. So you would have definitely had to use a limit order, and you may or may not get filled on it. So that's the problem with that. I marked it anyway, but I'd forgot about it gapping over and taking off like that. So you may not could have got in that trade. Runs on up, and then you get a triple test here, the first break of that trend line. That's a fairly strong move. The market's trending pretty strongly right through here, and you can see the triple test there. Nice signal bar, another hidden second entry. You could trade this one on the engulfing bar if you really wanted to. I'd probably wait for this to close just to be sure, and go long there. And that takes you into 230. It's just, I mean, there's this market is. This is an odd market right now. It continues to go up, but it's so slow. And then you have these sell-offs, and then then it goes higher again. It creeps. It's mostly just sideways, up and down, mixed trading. Late in the afternoon that makes a move. It seems like most late every afternoon it makes a move. It did that again today around 1 o'clock. So here it makes a move after just chopping up and down all day. And yesterday, kind of late afternoon, it made a move down after chopping around, chopping up. We did have a couple of days there where it rallied. That's really where most of that came from. But here we are again. We're just chopping all over the place. Kind of down here, but a lot of still sideways mixed trading. This market's it's just not a great market right now. It's going to change at some point. We're going to start trending one way or the other probably here before long. There's just a lot of mixed economic news. The economy doesn't feel good to people, so but the market still keeps creeping higher. So never argue with the market. We don't care what the news says. All we care is what the market's doing. And the sooner you accept that and go that direction, the better off you'll be. So never try to guess what the market's going to do. Always let it show you. And if you aren't sure, then don't do anything. That's the biggest advice, best advice I can give anybody. Anytime you see a setup and you aren't 100% sure what the market's doing on these choppy days like this, your best move is to do nothing. In fact, maybe if you're just not sure and you sit there and you start to get bored, you start to get impatient, your best move might be to close up shop and go home for the day and come back tomorrow, live to trade another day, because tomorrow might be that day where it takes off and doesn't stop, and you catch a runner and it goes to the moon. So, yeah, anytime you're not sure of a trade, or the market's not doing what you're expecting it to do, or it's difficult to determine what the market's doing, just don't take a trade. Just sit there and wait. Eventually it'll clear up. And sometimes it's better just take the day off, or take a few hours off, or whatever whatever, till the market starts moving. So I think that's going to do it for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.